Hello, and welcome to the Flux Planner training video. My name is Matt Vazdinskas with Flux Capacity. I'll be walking you through this tutorial. The Flux Planner Lightning component is a user interface built for interacting with Flux resource workloads and visualizing utilization levels. With this UI, you have a resource-centered view into workloads and the ability to drill into underlying project and task details that make up those workloads. In this video, we'll show you how to navigate the UI, adjust view settings to show just what you need, and to interact with the data in the resource timeline. Once oriented, we'll show you how you can use this tool to take action by managing workload to keep utilization levels balanced. Before we get started, it's important to call out that action is required by your Salesforce system administrator to begin using the Flux Planner UI. There are two permission sets that control and secure functionality in the Flux Planner. First, the Flux Planner Viewer Permission Set grants people ability to access the UI in a read-only fashion. All users that will be using the Flux Planner must have this Flux Planner Viewer permission set. The second permission set is the Flux Planner Admin permission set. This is a supplemental permission set that grants users the ability to reassign tasks and take action on tasks in the Flux Planner. This Flux Planner admin permission set must be applied along with the viewer permission set for any users that will have those more advanced capabilities. Let's get comfortable navigating the Flux Planner. The Flux Planner is accessed through the Flux Planner tab, which is part of the Flux Capacity app as shown here. You can also add the Flux Planner tab to other Lightning apps such as TaskRay, Sales, and Service. What we see inside of the Flux Planner is a visual representation of all the TaskRay tasks and their forecasted hours for the owning resources. A few things are always excluded from the Flux Planner view, which are important to understand. First, any TaskRay projects where exclude from Flux forecasts has been set to true are excluded from this view. Also, TaskRay tasks that have either been archived or that have already been worked and have been marked as completed are excluded from the view. So for example, here we're looking at this week, and we see that Maggie Donaldson has been doing a great job of keeping up to date with her tasks. So really everything up to today, which is represented by this dark column bar, has been completed for Maggie. And so we don't show any outstanding work. So it's important to understand that completed tasks are not displayed. It's also worth noting that on-hold projects are not specifically filtered out of the Flux Planner. We recommend, based on your on-hold process, to set the exclude from Flux forecasts field on any TaskRay projects that you wish to exclude from resource planning. There are three sets of view settings that give you control over what you see in the Flux Planner timeline. First, we see a date range selector. This date range selector controls the duration of the timeline that is drawn in the Flux Planner UI. We can select from intuitive options such as this week, and next week, and custom. Here we're looking at current week and next week. We can also select from a custom date range using a date range selector, and we'll extend out our end date to make this a full 3-week view. For best results, we do recommend working with no more than 6 to 8 weeks of data at a time. Actual results in your Salesforce org may vary depending on the volume of data in your environment, specifically the number of Flux resources and TaskRay tasks. You may need to apply filters or work with shorter date ranges in order to operate within Salesforce query limits. The second set of view settings that we have available control the summary level that we're looking at. I'm going to start with the day summary level, and that'll calculate resource utilization for each day in the timeline. So here we see in each cell, first, the number of forecasted hours, the capacity of the resource for that day, and then the resulting calculated utilization, which is forecast hours over capacity. If I switch to the week summary view, here we will calculate resource utilization for each week in the timeline. And finally, we have an option for current range. Current range, and in this case, we are looking at a 3-week view. Current range gives us summary numbers for that entire timeline that's been drawn. So here we see total utilization for the 3-week time period displayed. The final view setting is filters. Clicking the filter button will launch a side panel that allows you to apply filters that will control the data set displayed in the timeline. Starting with Flux Team, we can select one or more Flux teams, click Apply, and you'll see that the resource list to left has been reduced to only include the resources that are a member of the onboarding specialist team. The Flux resource stats displayed here are comprehensive, meaning they are not Flux team specific. This is an important thing to understand if your Flux resources are members of many teams. We do not display Flux team allocations in this UI. That is best done in Flux capacity reports and dashboards. The next filter is the Flux resource filter. This gives us the ability to select from specific resources and queues. By applying the filter, the list is reduced to just those resources and queues selected. This is very handy when performing one-on-one meetings or breaking out with a set of specific resources and reviewing workload. Next, the Show Queues toggle will do just that. It will display queues along with the named resources. Now, by default, queues are not displayed. We see that there is some utilization as we include forecasts for these queue resources further out to the right. Including forecasts, which is that last toggle that I just selected, will bring in all TaskRay projects where Flux forecast project equals true, and those are the projects that are related to the open opportunities in your pipeline. We do not currently limit those based on forecast category or stage. Now let's dig into the details of the timeline, starting with the resource summary row. Each Flux resource has a top-line stat bar that summarizes all of the projects and tasks for the date range displayed in the timeline. Color coding of the summary row blocks starts with blue, which is less than or equal to 100% forecast utilization, red, which indicates greater than 100% forecast utilization, orange, clearly indicating time away being present, and then gray represents no work forecast. With the resource timeline, we can easily drill down into underlying projects. Each project includes a summary on a daily basis for work forecast. This includes all tasks within this range and the forecasted number of hours, the resources total capacity for that day, and then the percent of the total capacity that this project represents for this resource on this day. Next, we can drill down to see underlying task details for each of those projects. So for Ashley Smith on the Dynamite Springs project, we see two tasks during this date range. That includes training resources and product training. Similarly, each task has a breakdown on a daily basis of the number of hours forecast for that day, the resource's daily capacity, and then the percentage of capacity that this task occupies for that resource. Expand All is available at resource level, which will open up all projects for all resources displayed. Expand All Projects will further expand down to the most granular level, which includes task details under each project for each resource. And the final navigation item is the ability to drill into and open a standard Salesforce Lightning record page for resources, projects, and tasks. So all of these are hyperlinks into those detail pages from the left side panel. Now that you're oriented and understand how all the different elements of the Flux planner come together, let's take action on projects and tasks. Managing resource allocation is quick and easy in the Flux planner. Taking action is a two-step process. First, we identify resource allocation concerns. Typically, those would be highlighted in red. And we'll select tasks to assess reassignment impacts. The second step in taking action would be to locate the right Flux resource and reassign tasks. Let's first investigate Brooke Nielsen. We notice that Brooke has a couple of days where she's overbooked. And we want to see what's making up that workload. We notice that Stratified Partners has a couple of tasks on that Monday and Tuesday, and we can simply click on the project, which will include the selection of all underlying tasks for that project. And we see that if we were to reassign that task away from Brooke, her resulting utilization on those 2 days brings her back within a desired utilization level. I can also do that by selecting individual tasks. Each time I click or deselect, the resource summary row will recalculate and give you revised totals. I'm going to cancel my changes with Brooke for now because I just noticed that Andrew has some time off next week, and I see a spike in the work the day before he leaves. Let's try to lighten the load a little for Andrew. First, we'll see what is making up that underlying work. I notice that Silver 8 Labs has a 4-hour review success criteria task on that Tuesday. If I click that task, I'll see that if I remove that task from Andrew, that puts him back to a desired utilization level. Notice that selected tasks are placed in this handy tray component, so you can easily see all tasks that have been selected for reassignment and details on their start and end dates and number of hours. If you change your mind, you can easily remove any task simply by Xing it out from the tray or deselecting the task by clicking on it as we demonstrated previously. Once you've selected all tasks you wish to reassign, we're just going to, for now, for Andrew, since that puts us where we need to be for next week, we're going to click Reassign Selected. And now we're moving into the reassign mode. It's time to find the right Flux resource to reassign the tasks to. The reassign mode displays the resulting utilization levels for each resource if the selected tasks are assigned to them. So at a glance, you can determine the resulting availability of each Flux resource before committing any changes. You might wish to apply filters to, to narrow results to a specific team or resource, or even expand the date range to get a feel for uh, tasks outside of just this week and maybe see what the impact is in future weeks before committing to a task reassignment. Here we see that Ashley Smith, for that task that's occurring on the 2nd, her utilization is going to be at an acceptable level, right at the 7 hours targeted. And so by selecting Ashley and assigning selected, we're committing to the changes. And that's it. We can look at another resource and repeat the process as necessary to keep allocation smooth. Thanks for watching this training video. If you have any questions, please visit our support site for helpful articles or to request support.